My boy Azazel is so direct, not even trying to hide what he is currently trying to do to Nina. When he just says, like, hey, let me make love to you, I'm like, bruh, like, at least take her out on a date first, get her a cup of coffee, whatever, but my boy, like, he is so direct. Like, I was just blown away by how he just said that. He acted so casual about it, it didn't bug him at all, and then he just carried on. He didn't even really take a moment to think about it once he was done saying it. He was just like, I guess that was just normal to say. That's what he probably thought in his head, and I'm like, yo, Ozzy, like, man, I like you as a character, but holy crap, what you just did, like, yo, like, oh my god, like, I gotta be real here. I ship those two characters now. Like, I wasn't shipping Azazel and Nina, but after seeing that exchange, but also how she turned into a dragon to save him, and all of the stuff that happened in this episode, I'm gonna say right now, I ship those two characters. Like, I think those two should be, like, a couple or something, because after what I saw, and judging by how Nina, reacted to it and all of that, especially that one scene, once, he asked, like, here, let me make love to you, and then all of a sudden she just ran out of the shop, that was probably the funniest moment of the episode. Like, okay, I wish I had, like, a GIF or something like that. Like, I wish I had a full animated GIF for that one scene, because it was just that good. When you see Nina just get up, she just covers herself, she's, like, completely new, but she's just covered up in, like, a blanket, and she just runs out of the shop just screaming and all that, and the way you just see her running down the street amongst everyone and all that, and she just screaming all embarrassed, I'm like, oh my god, like, yo, like, that was so good, like, the facial reaction of Nina in that scene, when she's just so embarrassed, she's just running down the street and all that, passing people, not even caring, but she was just so embarrassed for what Azazel said to her. I'm like, that is just such a good moment, comedy gold. I was just dying, like, I paused the video, and I was just laughing so hard at that scene, just because of the way Nina reacted to what Azazel said. Now, as I've said many times already, Nina, I love her character so much. She is such a wonderful character for this series, and I'm just still amazed with how she's able to just be such a good character to watch on screen, because normally when you have such a wonderful cast from, like, a previous series or a previous season or whatever, it's really hard to fill that gap. It's really hard to bring a character and give it life and have this character stand out amongst an already colorful cast. And just seeing how Nina is able to do this once again throughout this entire episode, I'm like, seriously, Shingeki no Bahamut, I love you as a series. I'm just so glad you're airing, and I'm so glad you have a season 2, because this series is so good. So, with all that being said, we get a little bit of characterization / backstory on Nina and kind of how she was raised, but also what is different about her compared to everyone else in her village. So apparently, Nina's parents, her mother was human, if I'm correct. Like, her mother is human, and the father is dragon. I could have that in, backwards or whatever. But one of them, is human. One of them is, like, part dragon. And basically, they fell in love. They had a child, which became Nina. Now, it's not necessarily explained if that is the reason why she has that transformation, because she's, half human and also half dragon. It's, not explained if that is the reason why she, when she looks at someone, she gets thirsty, and then she transforms into a dragon. It's not explained if that's the reason. Like, that's what you would assume it is, but there's other things too, because there was a certain line said in this episode that definitely hints at something that clearly is a part of the major plot of the series. Azazel mentions that Nina's transformation when she, became a dragon was like a mini Bahamut. And we know, if you've watched the original series, which you should have, you shouldn't be watching season 2 if you haven't seen the original, you should remember, the series, taking down Bahamut and all that, how strong he was, Sild and all that. We remember how strong he was. And since Azazel went out of his way to say she's like a mini Bahamut, I feel like she either is a fraction of whatever the Bahamut was, or, like, reincarnation or something like that. I mean, there has to be something going on there because of Azazel to make that observation and say that in this episode, but also because the series title is obviously Rage of Bahamut, and since she's technically going on a rampage, she's just destroying things and all of that, and she forgets everything once she wakes up. we could assume that most likely we're seeing how the Bahamut probably became Bahamut in the original Season 1. Most likely. Now, besides that, though, I do say the backstory to Nina and how she was very different from all the other kids was really fascinating. It's something we kind of already knew, like it was already speculated by now, but it was finally officially revealed that all the kids in her village, they were very different from her. I mean, they could take upon, human form, but they still could turn into dragons, and they had a lot more control. They could, control their forms when they shifted into them, but also they would remember when they turned into a dragon. However, Nina, as I said, she's very different. She couldn't remember anything, she couldn't control her form, and the only way she could really turn into a dragon is by getting thirsty for a dude. And so it sets her completely different and apart from everyone else in her village. She was kind of like the outcast, and so eventually she just decided to pack up and leave, and she came to the capital, which we now know where she's at this moment. So Nina's characterization was pretty interesting, and I feel like there's going to be a little bit more to her origin than what meets the eye, because like I said, for Azazel to make that observation saying that, she's like a mini Bahamut, clearly she's going to be very, very important. Not just for saving demons and all that and setting the world straight, but I feel like because of that one line, she might awaken something to where, it'll be a reference to the title of the series. So, speaking of Azazel, let's talk about that man for a second. So, Azazel, I gotta commend the animators on the beginning segment of this episode. Like, that Azazel fight, beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. Studio Mappa, you did some good work. Like, you did some really good work on that Azazel fight scene when he was rushing in towards the king. He was fighting everybody. Even the CGI. Yeah, that's rare from me. Me, of all people, praising CGI. Even the CGI looked decent. It wasn't the best, but it looked decent. I could accept it. And I gotta admit, job well done. It looked really good. It was a great action battle scene for this episode, seeing Azazel going in and wrecking house and all that, just truly badass, and just job well done, Studio Mappa, and everyone that worked on this episode. That was some solid stuff I saw. So, speaking of art and animation, can I just take a moment to mention how much I appreciate that Studio Mappa is using 2D for Nina's dragon form instead of CGI. Now, don't get me wrong, the CGI in some parts of the original series, it looked pretty good. I remember that one dragon scene. I forget the name of the dragon. It was a long time ago, please forgive me. But there was a dragon scene in the original Season 1. I think it was a green dragon or whatever. And the frames per second that scene was just horrible. I remember I complained about it, but it still looked very beautiful. Like, it looked insanely good. And so, Shingeki no Bahamut usually had good CGI. It doesn't necessarily mean just because it has CGI it looks ugly, but it has had its problems here and there. But I do appreciate how this season they're not trying to cheap out and use CGI for Nina's dragon form, because I've seen a lot of anime, and I know a lot of companies tend to want to use CGI when it comes to monster-like forms, especially dragons. Like, when you have a dragon in a series, it's easier to animate it in CGI than, drawing it in 2D and all these little individual, frames and stuff. So I do appreciate how Mappa has taken the time with their staff, and I do hope the staff is getting paid, because, all that, hubbub about, animators not getting paid. I do hope they're getting paid and they're not overworking themselves, but I do appreciate that they are putting all that effort into Nina's dragon form. It really fits the show better. It doesn't make, her transformation look out of place, and like I said, I appreciate that immensely. That is probably one of my favorite parts about this in terms of cosmetics when it comes to Shingeki no Bahamut Virgin Soul. Definitely one of my favorite parts about it. Not the characters or anything, just that alone makes me very happy. So, with all of that brushed to the side, we have some setup going on with Kaisar and how he's playing a very shifty role right now. And I don't really like Kaisar's position. I don't. Because we understand he's a good guy. Well, we know this. Like, he's a good guy deep down. He has good intentions. But, as Azazel said, like, you're even worse than the people I've been killing because you're just turning, another cheek. Like, you're just looking away. You're not even paying attention to what's really going on here. And when Kaisar jumped in front of Nina and all that to protect the king, I was like, you disgust me, Kaisar. Like, are you serious? Like, I know you have a sense of justice and all that, and you're a good dude, and I won't put you down for that, but that really upset me. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, all of this kind of could have been put to an end right then and there, but you stopped it. I'm like, oh my god, my boy, you need to chill with that. Like, Favreau needs to get back in this series and just kick you back in line. Seriously, this is what happens when Favreau isn't there. So, yeah, I mean, we have also set up for Azazel going to meet other demons as well, so he's probably building an army up for he can, take back, the demons from the capital city, help out the angels as well. It's just going to be a big, rebellion probably building up in the upcoming episodes. Speaking of angels, though, so a character that we saw in Season 1 and we haven't seen yet in Season 2 was finally popped up again in Season 2. I think you pronounce her name Jeanne? No, if I'm saying her name wrong, please forgive me. It's been forever, and if I make mistakes, I own up to it. But thing is, though, the character Jeanne, she is finally back in this series, and she is locked up, apparently, and she apparently has a child. Now, I'm under the assumption that it's Muguro. You know, the angel boy and all that's been hanging out with, Azazel. I'm assuming that's their, her child. And I'm kind of curious now who the father is. I mean, it might be Michael. Maybe Favreau. Who knows? I mean, we have no idea. But, I mean, I'm kind of curious about that because we know Muguro has one of the most important roles when it comes to the series right now. I mean, Nina's very important, especially with the line from Azazel in this episode, but Muguro has more of importance, clearly because of the power he's displayed and how he has a connection both to demonkind and also angels and all that, how the king kind of wants him. It's clear as day that, Muguro is very vital to the plot, and so I'm kind of curious where this, little plot point is going to go in the future episodes of Shingeki no Bahamut Virgin Soul. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.